The rain hammered the hostel window like it had a grudge, but it was the warmth of his breath on my neck that jolted me awake, not the storm outside. Rowan's hand lingered there, fingers tracing the curve of my shoulder blade with a tenderness that felt like theft. His body pressed close in the narrow bunk we'd been forced to share. In that suspended heartbeat, before he realized I was stirring, I didn't pull away. I froze, heart slamming against ribs, wondering if this was the moment everything in me cracked open. Seattle in late fall was a city that swallowed you whole, all gray skies and relentless drizzle that seeped into your bones like regret. I'd hitchhiked up from Portland on a whim, backpack slung over one shoulder, chasing the ghost of a summer that had left me hollowed out back in Haven Point, Maine. Small towns like that, they're cradles for secrets, but mine had turned into a cage. My folks, salt-of-the-earth lobstermen with calloused hands and Bibles on the nightstand, had found the crumpled photo in my glove compartment. Me, 17 and stupid, lips locked with Caleb under the bleachers at the county fair. Freak! Dad had spat, voice like gravel under tires, and just like that, the door slammed shut behind me. No goodbye, no map, just the open road and a fistful of crumpled 20s. The hostel on Capitol Hill was a converted Victorian, all creaky floors and mismatched furniture, the kind of place where transients like me blended into the woodwork. I checked in late, soaked to the skin, and the clerk, a lanky kid with a septum piercing, had shrugged when I asked for a single. Full up, man. Bunk with Rowan. He's chill, right? I'd nodded, too tired to argue, and hauled my bag up the narrow stairs to room 7, the air thick with the scent of instant coffee and damp wool. Rowan Hale was sprawled on the bottom bunk when I pushed the door open, one arm thrown over his eyes, chest rising slow under a faded Texas Longhorns tee. He was 24, the clerk had said, but looked older in the low light, broad-shouldered, skin a warm olive that spoke of summers in the Rio Grande Valley, close-cropped black hair, and a jawline sharp enough to cut glass. His jeans rode low on hips marked by a thin silver chain, and when he shifted, I caught the faint ink of a tattoo peeking from his sleeve. A compass rose, petals frayed like it had been through a storm. He didn't stir as I claimed the top bunk, just mumbled something about the rain being God's piss test before rolling over. That first night, sleep came in fits, the patter on the roof sinking with the thud of my pulse. Dreams tangled with memories. Caleb's laugh echoing off the pines, the way his fingers had dug into my waist like anchors. I woke tangled in sheets, sweat slick, and that's when it happened. The bunk creaked below, a soft rustle like pages turning in the dark. I lay still, breath held, assuming Rowan was just shifting in his sleep. But then his hand, rough from whatever labor he'd fled south for, slid up the ladder rung, brushing my dangling wrist like it was accidental. It wasn't. His touch lingered, thumb circling the pulse point, and when I cracked my eyes, I saw him there in the sliver of streetlight, gaze fixed on me with an intensity that pinned me in place. "You're awake," he whispered, voice low and gravelly, laced with that slow Texas drawl that wrapped around vowels like smoke. Not a question, more like an invitation wrapped in certainty. His fingers didn't retreat. Instead, they traced higher, along the inside of my arm, mapping veins like he was reading a story written in blue ink. My body betrayed me instantly, goosebumps racing, breath catching in a way that felt like surrender. Who was this guy? A stranger in a city of millions. Yet in that moment, the room shrank to the space between our bunks, charged with something electric and forbidden. I should have jerked away, muttered something about boundaries, but the words stuck. Instead, I whispered back, "What are you doing?" Lame but honest. His laugh was soft, almost apologetic, but his eyes, dark, fathomless, held no regret. "Couldn't sleep. Heard you tossing. Figured. Maybe you needed company." Company. The word hung there, heavy with implication. His hand paused at my elbow, waiting, and God help me, I didn't stop him. I let him climb the ladder, the bunk groaning under his weight as he settled beside me, bodies fitting like puzzle pieces we'd never known were missing. We didn't speak after that, not really. His mouth found my collarbone first, tentative kisses that tasted of salt and rain. Then bolder, teeth grazing skin as his hands explored the plains of my chest. Elias Thorne, the boy who'd run from Maine with nothing but shame in his rearview, was unraveling under the touch of a man whose last name I barely knew. It was messy, urgent. Fingers fumbling with zippers, breaths mingling in the close air. But there was a reverence to it, too, like Rowan was handling something fragile, something he'd been searching for in the dark. When it was over, we lay there, limbs entangled, the rain a steady drum outside. His head on my chest, listening to the wild beat beneath, he murmured, "You taste like the ocean." I chuckled, low and disbelieving, fingers threading through his hair. "And you taste like trouble." Truth was, I didn't know what to make of it. Desire had always been my shadow, lurking in stolen glances and late-night confessions. But this felt like stepping off a cliff, freefall into whatever came next. Morning broke gray and unforgiving, coffee brewing in the communal kitchen downstairs where a mix of backpackers nursed hangovers and maps. Rowan was already up, leaning against the counter in fresh jeans and a flannel that hugged his frame, chatting easy with a girl from Vancouver about the best dive bars. He nodded when he saw me, casual as if we'd just met, but his eyes lingered a beat too long, a secret shared in the tilt of his smile. I poured my mug black, strong enough to scald, and joined them, the conversation flowing like we'd been friends for years. He told stories of El Paso sunsets, dusty roads, and border town fiestas, his voice painting pictures vivid enough to chase the chill. I shared scraps of Maine, fog-shrouded lighthouses, the bite of winter wind, but skirted the edges of why I was really here, rootless and adrift. By afternoon, the rain had eased to a mist, and Rowan suggested we hit the market. Pike Place, with its fish-tossing chaos and flower stalls bursting color against the gloom. We wandered shoulder to shoulder, sampling chowder from paper bowls, his arm brushing mine in the crowd like it belonged there. "You ever feel like you're running from something?" he asked suddenly, pausing by a stall of handmade leather journals, his fingers tracing the embossed covers. I looked at him, really looked. The faint scar above his eyebrow, the way his shoulders tensed under the flannel. "Every damn day," I admitted, and for the first time since leaving Haven Point, it didn't feel like a confession, felt like truth. That night, back in the bunk, the air hummed with unspoken promises. His touch was slower this time, deliberate, mapping every inch like he was committing it to memory. We talked in whispers between kisses, about dreams deferred, the weight of expectations from families who loved hard but understood little. Rowan spoke of his brother, lost to the desert heat and bad choices, the guilt that clung like sand. I told him about Caleb, the boy who'd promised forever and vanished when the whispers turned to shouts. Vulnerability hung between us, raw and real, binding us tighter than any physical pull. But as the days blurred, lazy mornings tangled in sheets, evenings lost in dive bars where neon buzzed like fireflies, doubt crept in. Rowan's phone would light up at odd hours, screen angled away, his laugh forced when he answered. "Just work," he'd say, but his eyes would shudder, that easy openness replaced by something guarded. I pushed it down, chalking it up to my own baggage, the fear that anything good would slip through my fingers like fog. One evening, after a hike up to Discovery Park where the pines whispered secrets to the sound, we sat on a driftwood log, knees touching, watching fairies slice through the water. "What if this is it?" Rowan said, voice barely above the waves. "Us here now." I turned to him, heart swelling with a hope I hadn't dared name. "Then we make it more than now." His kiss was fierce, sealing the pact, and for a moment, Seattle felt like home. Yet, as we walked back, hand in hand through the gathering dusk, I couldn't shake the shadow at the edge of my vision. Something was coming, a storm fiercer than the one that had greeted me, and when it broke, it would test every fragile thread we'd woven in the dark. The weeks stretched like taffy, sweet and sticky, pulling us deeper into each other's orbits. The hostel became our unintended sanctuary. Room 7 a cocoon where the world outside blurred into irrelevance. Morning started with Rowan's coffee ritual. Strong, black, with a splash of whatever creamer was left in the fridge, poured into mugs we'd claimed as ours. He'd perch on the edge of my bunk, legs dangling, recounting half-remembered dreams while I traced the veins on his forearms, marveling at the map of a life so different from mine. "You ever think about going back?" he'd ask, eyes on the rain-streaked window. Back to El Paso, to the family ranch where his dad still raised cattle under a sky vast as regret. I shake my head, throat tight. Not if it means losing this. We explored Seattle like kids unchained from school. Ferry rides to Bainbridge Island, where we'd hike trails thick with ferns, hands clasped against the chill. Afternoons lost in the stacks of Elliott Bay Book Company, swapping dog-eared paperbacks on Kerouac and Whitman, voices hushed like we were sharing contraband. Rowan had a laugh that rumbled low, infectious, drawing smiles from strangers in coffee shops where we'd linger over lattes, knees bumping under Formica tables. "Your trouble, Elias Thorne," he'd say, leaning in close enough for his breath to ghost my ear, and I'd grin, heart light, replying, "Only the good kind." But beneath the ease, fissures formed. His phone calls grew more frequent, late-night murmurs in the hallway that left him tense, jaw clenched like he'd bitten into something bitter. I'd pretend to sleep when he slipped back in, but the bunk creaked with his weight, and I'd catch the scent of cigarette smoke clinging to his clothes, a habit he'd sworn off, or so he'd told me. Once, I woke to find him staring at the ceiling, profile etched in moonlight, tears tracking silent paths down his temples. "Hey!" I whispered, reaching down. His hand met mine, squeezing hard enough to bruise. "Just ghosts," he muttered, but his voice cracked, and in that fracture, I glimpsed the man beneath the charm, the one carrying burdens he wouldn't name. I had my own shadows, of course. Nights when the rain mimicked the relentless drip of memory, pulling me under to Haven Point. The arguments replayed in loops. Mom's quiet sobs, Dad's bellows echoing off clapboard walls. "You're my son, Eli. How could you throw it all away for this?" As if love were a choice, a transaction gone sour. I'd bolt upright, chest heaving, and Rowan's arms would find me in the dark, pulling me close without a word. His body was a balm, solid and warm, grounding me in the now. "Breathe with me," he'd murmur, hands splayed over my heart, and slowly, the panic ebbed, replaced by the steady rhythm of us. One crisp November afternoon, we drove out to the coast, borrowed wheels from a hostel mate, an old Subaru that rattled like loose teeth. The road to Deception Pass wound through evergreens, mist curling like fingers from the hood. Rowan cranked the classic rock station, Springsteen wailing about Thunder Roads, and we sang off-key, windows down to let the wind whip our hair. At the bridge, we parked and walked the span, the water churning far below, slate gray and unforgiving. He leaned on the railing, wind tugging at his jacket, and turned to me with that crooked smile. "Ever jump?" A dare, half joking, but his eyes held something deeper. A test, maybe, of how far we'd leap together. "Not without you," I shot back, and pulled him into a kiss that tasted of salt spray and possibility. We made love that night in a roadside motel, the room smelling of pine cleaner and faded dreams, neon vacancy sign buzzing through thin curtains. It was slower than the frantic nights in the bunk, more deliberate. His hands learning the arch of my back, my lips charting the constellation of freckles across his shoulders. Afterward, tangled in sheets that smelled of us, he traced lazy patterns on my skin. "I love you," he said, the words slipping out like they'd been waiting in the wings. My heart stuttered, then soared. "Love you too," I whispered, and meant it with every fiber. But love, it turns out, is a spotlight that reveals cracks you didn't know were there. The next day, back in the city, I stumbled on the first thread. We'd stopped at a laundromat on Broadway, quarters clinking into machines while we waited for cycles to spin. Rowan's phone buzzed on the folding table, screen lighting up with a name, Jet. I didn't mean to look. Curiosity, not suspicion. But the preview text seared, "Miss you tonight. Same place." He snatched it quick, thumb swiping to silence, but the damage was done. "Who?" I asked, voice steady as I could manage. He hesitated, that guarded shadow crossing his face. "Old friend." Nothing. The lie hung between us, thin as the steam rising from dryers. I let it slide, chalking it up to paranoia, the old wounds from Caleb flaring like phantom limbs. But the seed took root. That night, as we lay in the bunk, his touch felt edged with urgency, like he was making up for something. I responded in kind, losing myself in the heat, but when he drifted off, I stared at the ceiling, questions gnawing like rats in the walls. The unraveling accelerated midweek. A group from the hostel, mismatched souls chasing tempests of their own, invited us to a bonfire on Alki Beach. We arrived as dusk bled into night, sand cool under bare feet, flames crackling against the incoming tide. Guitars strummed folk tunes, bottles passed hand to hand, laughter cutting through the surf's roar. Rowan was magnetic, as always, stories flowing like whiskey, drawing the circle tight around him. I watched from the periphery, nursing a beer, warmth blooming in my chest at the sight of him alive like that. Then Jet appeared, tall, lean, with sun-bleached hair and a surfer's easy grin. He materialized from the shadows like he'd been conjured. "Rowan, man. Thought that was you." The hug was too familiar, lingering a beat past brotherly, and Rowan's laugh rang forced. "Jet, been a minute." Introductions rippled awkward, my hand extended stiffly. Jet's grip was firm, eyes appraising. "Elias, right? Rowan's told me about you." Had he? The words twisted in my gut. As the night wore on, they gravitated together, whispers over the fire, heads bent close. I told myself it was nothing, joined the circle, but the knot in my stomach tightened with every shared glance. When Jet's hand clapped Rowan's shoulder, fingers squeezing in a way that spoke volumes, I excused myself, wandering to the water's edge. The waves lapped cold at my ankles, mirroring the chill settling in my veins. Footsteps crunched behind me. Rowan, breath warm against the night air. "Hey, you okay?" His arms circled my waist, chin on my shoulder. I leaned back, warring with the urge to confront. Just the beer hitting. Lie for lie, we danced. Later, in the bunk, his lovemaking was fervent, almost desperate, as if touch could erase the doubt. I clung to him, whispering endearments into his skin, but sleep evaded me. Dawn found me hollow-eyed, watching him dress for a solo run that stretched into hours. When he returned, flushed and evasive, I cracked, "Jet, what's the deal?" The question burst out over breakfast, mugs clattering on the shared table. He froze, fork midway to mouth. "Eli, it's not." "Don't." I cut in, voice low to spare the thin walls. "Just tell me." The confession spilled then, halting at first, then in a rush. Jet was an ex, from Austin days. Passionate, volatile, the kind of love that burned hot and left scars. They'd reconnected weeks ago, just talking. But it had veered into old patterns. "One night," Rowan admitted, eyes downcast. "Before us. I swear, since you. It's been you." The betrayal stung, sharp as sea glass, but his remorse raw, unfiltered, tempered the blade. We argued in hushed tones, words like barbs. Trust, lies, the fragility of new beginnings. Yet, in the wreckage, something shifted. He reached for my hand, and I didn't pull away. "I'm scared," he said simply. Me too, I thought. But running had brought me here, to him. Maybe staying was the real leap. Forgiveness didn't come easy. It simmered, tested by days of stilted silences and tentative touches. But Seattle's rhythm pulled us back. Markets alive with holiday lights now twinkling early, streets scented with roasted chestnuts. We rebuilt, brick by careful brick. A promise to talk, no more shadows. One evening, walking Queen and Hill as fog rolled in thick, he stopped under a street lamp, breath clouding the air. "You're my anchor, Eli. Don't let go." I kissed him then, fierce and sure, tasting salt of unshed tears. In that moment, the city felt vast, full of second chances. Still, the undercurrent tugged. Jet texted again, innocuous on the surface. "Catch up soon." But Rowan showed me, transparent now, and deleted it together. Trust, fragile as spun glass, began to mend. Yet, as December loomed, with its freight of family ghosts and forced cheer, I wondered if our patchwork could weather the gales ahead. Little did I know, the real storm was brewing closer, in the form of a letter from home that would upend everything. December draped Seattle in tinsel and chill, holiday lights strung like desperate prayers across the gloom. The hostel buzzed with transients fleeing their own winters, families from the Midwest, solo wanderers nursing thermos flasks of spiked cider. Room 7 felt smaller now, our lives overlapping in the details. Rowan's boots by the door, my sketchpad on the shared desk, filled with hasty charcoal lines of his profile, captured in stolen moments. We'd fallen into a rhythm, tentative but real, mornets of shared showers in the communal bath, steam fogging mirrors as hands wandered. Evenings cooking ramen upgraded with scavenged veggies, trading stories over flickering tea lights. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, slipped under the door like an afterthought from fate. Envelope crisp, addressed in Mom's looping script. Elias Thorne, care of Capitol Hill Hostel. My hands shook opening it, the paper thin as old skin. Inside, words flowed like a dam breaking. Apologies wrapped in scripture. Pleas for reconciliation. Your father misses his boy. Come home for Christmas. We can talk. God forgives. So can we. The weight of it pressed, a tether yanking me back to Haven Point's salt winds and judgmental stares. I folded it away, but the seed of doubt sprouted, whispering of roots severed too clean. Rowan noticed, of course. He always did, those dark eyes reading me like Braille. That night, as we lay entwined, his fingers stilled on my hip. "What's eating you?" I hesitated, then handed him the letter, watching his face in the dim glow of my phone screen. He read slow, brow furrowing, then set it aside. "You gonna go?" Voice neutral, but tension threaded through. I shrugged, throat tight. "Don't know. Part of me wants to fix it, prove I'm not the monster they think." He pulled me closer, lips brushing my temple. "You're not a monster, Eli. You're you. And that's enough." His words were a lifeline, but doubt lingered, a shadow in the bunk's confines. The holidays amplified everything. The city's cheer a stark foil to our private tempests. We joined a hostile potluck, tables groaning under mismatched dishes. Watery gravy, lumpy mashed potatoes, a pie that tasted of regret. Laughter rang hollow as folks swapped tales of estranged kin. And when Rowan draped an arm over my shoulders, it felt like defiance. A quiet fuck you to the ghosts circling our table. Later, in a corner booth at a dive called the Rusty Anchor, we nursed whiskeys and made lists. Places we'd go when the money came: New Orleans jazz dives, California redwoods, a road trip stitched across the map like a promise. But Jet's ghost refused to stay buried. He showed up uninvited at a holiday market on a Saturday, snow flurrying soft as confetti. We were browsing ornaments. Rowan holding a glass star to the light, joking about hanging it over our bunk, when the voice cut through. "Fancy meeting you lovebirds here." Jet, bundled in a wool peacoat, cheeks flushed from cold or drink. Rowan's posture stiffened, but he played it cool. "Jet, small world." Handshakes exchanged, but Jet's eyes lingered on me, sharp and assessing. "Heard you two are serious. Good for you, Ro." The words dripped saccharine, and when he pulled Rowan aside for a quick word, my stomach knotted. I wandered to a stall of handmade scarves, fingering wool soft as secrets, but ears strained to their murmurs. Fragments carried on the wind. Can't keep pretending. What we had. Rowan's voice, low and urgent. "It's over, man. let it go. When he returned, face stormy, he forced a smile. Old news. But the market's magic soured, and we left early, silence thick as the falling snow. That confrontation cracked something in him. Back in the room, as boots thudded to the floor, he paced, hands raking through his hair. Jet's been pushing. Says I'm deluding myself, that this, he gestured between us, is just running from the mess I left behind. His eyes met mine, vulnerable, stripped. But you're not a mess, Eli. You're the first real thing in years. I crossed to him, hands framing his face, thumbs brushing stubble. Then stop letting him in your head. Our kiss was battle-worn, fierce with reclamation, bodies colliding like waves on rock. In the aftermath, spent and sated, he confessed more. The wreckage of his last relationship, Jet's jealousy turning toxic, the night he'd walked away bloody-knuckled from a bar fight that ended with sirens. Hearing it aloud humanized the pain, turned abstract betrayal into shared scar tissue. We choose this, I said, tracing his tattoo. Every day. He nodded, pulling me close, and for a while, the bunk held us safe, a fortress against the fraying edges. Yet, the pull of home gnawed relentless. I booked a bus ticket south, impulse or maybe masochism, deciding to face Haven Point before the year turned. One night, I told Rowan over diner eggs, the din of forks clinking like accusations. In and out. Prove I can stand in the fire without burning. He searched my face, worry etching lines. Want me to come? Tempting, but no, this was my war. Stay. Hold the fort. Our goodbye at the Greyhound station was a stolen hour in his truck. Parked crooked in the lot, windows fogging with urgency. Call me, he murmured against my neck, voice rough. Every hour if you have to. The ride dragged, miles unspooling like regrets. Mane unfolded in winter's grip, bare branches clawing sky, salt air biting through cracked windows. Haven Point greeted me with its familiar hush, the harbor frozen in twilight, buoys bobbing like forgotten wishes. Mom met me at the door, apron dusted with flour, eyes red-rimmed but arms open. Eli, one word, waited with a year's silence. Dad hung back in the kitchen, grizzled beard hiding his expression. But when he pulled me into a bare hug, it cracked something deep. Dinner was strained civility. Cod cakes and potato, talk skirting edges. Weather the catch, my adventures west. No mentions of photos or preferences, just the unspoken chasm. Night fell heavy, guest room unchanged since high school. Posters of Red Sox heroes curling at edges, bed sagging under memory's weight. Sleep fled, replaced by replays. Caleb's ghost in the hall, the slam of that door. By dawn, resolve hardened. Over coffee, I laid it bare. I love who I love, Dad. That's not changing. His face crumpled, hands trembling on the mug. We just want you whole, son. Mom wept silent, but in her grip on my wrist, forgiveness flickered. Not absolution, that would take time, but a bridge, rickety but there. The bus back was lighter, Mane shrinking in the rear view of my mind. Texts from Rowan pinged constant. Miss your face. Storms brewing, stay safe. Landing in Seattle's embrace, I hailed a cab straight to the hostel, heart pounding with stories to unload. But the room was empty. Bed stripped bare, Rowan's duffel gone. Panic clawed up my throat. Downstairs, the clerk shrugged. Checked out this morning. Said something about heading south. Left this for you. The note was scrawled on hostel stationery, ink smudged like tears. Eli, Jet showed up last night, stirred the pot. Fights words I can't take back. Need space to sort my head. Don't hate me. You're the best thing. Rowan. The paper crumpled in my fist, betrayal blooming fresh, sharper than before. South to Jet, to the toxicity he'd sworn off. Rage warred with grief, the holiday lights outside mocking my unraveling. I sank to the bunk, now vast and cold, the rain resuming its dirge. Love, I'd thought, was the anchor, but anchors could drag you under, too. As night deepened, phone silent in my hand, I wondered if I'd just become another ghost in his story. The boy who'd believed in second chances, only to watch them vanish like mist. The day's post-note blurred into a gray haze, Seattle's winter deepening its claws. Room 7 echoed empty, Rowan's absence a void that swallowed sound. No creak of boots, no low hum of his voice on calls, no warmth bleeding through the mattress below. I moved like a specter, haunting the hostel's common spaces, nursing coffees gone cold while backpackers chattered obliviously around me. The clerk offered pitying glances, once sliding a free muffin my way. "Rough one, huh?" I nodded, numb, the sweetness turning to ash on my tongue. Grief hit in waves, unpredictable as the sound's tides. Mornings brought fury, punching pillows that no longer smelled of him, replaying the note's words like accusations. How could he? After the bonfire promises, the motel confessions, the way he'd held me through Maine's phantom tremors. Afternoons dissolved into listless wanders. Capitol Hill's graffiti alleys, where murals of defiant lovers mocked my solitude. The waterfront, staring at ferries that carried strangers to islands of escape I couldn't reach. Evenings, alone in the bunk, I'd scroll old texts. Love you more from a week ago, until eyes burned. Sleep a mercy that came fitful, haunted by dreams of his hands pulling away. Friends from the hostel tried bridging the gap. Lena, the Vancouver girl with her endless optimism, dragged me to open mic nights at cafes where poets spilled guts over guitar strums. "Write it out," she urged, shoving a notebook my way. I did, scribbles raw and jagged. Lines about anchors turning to chains, love as a thief in the night. One night, emboldened by cheap wine, I read aloud, voice cracking on the chorus of loss, and the smattering of claps felt like stitches in a wound. But applause couldn't fill the bunk, couldn't chase the chill. Jet's shadow loomed largest, a villain in my mental reel. I resisted the urge to search. No social media stalking, no desperate calls to numbers I didn't have, but imagination filled blanks with venom. Them tangled in some Austin motel, Rowan's laugh rumbling free again, untethered from our fragile weave. Betrayal layered on betrayal. First his secret nights, now this vanishing act. Yet, buried under the hurt, a sliver of understanding persisted. We'd both run, me from family iron, him from whatever fractured him south of the border. Maybe space was his way of running toward himself, not away from us. A week in, the dam broke. Curled on the bunk, rain lashing like judgment. I wept, ugly, shoulder-shaking sobs that left me hollowed. Why him? Why now, when I just glimpsed a future beyond survival? The answer whispered back. Because he saw me, all of me, and loved anyway. Flawed, fearful Elias. Not the polished version I'd armored for the world. Drying tears on the pillowcase. Resolve flickered. I wouldn't chase, but I wouldn't erase. Instead, I reclaimed the city on my own terms. New routines stitched the days. Dawn runs along the Burke-Gilman Trail, breath clouding in the frost, muscles burning out the ache. Shifts at a temp gig bagging groceries downtown, the monotony a balm to racing thoughts. Evenings found me at the library, devouring memoirs of queer icons. Audre Lorde's Fire, James Baldwin's Quiet Thunder. Words that armored my heart against the fray. One snowy afternoon, sketching in Volunteer Park, conservatory glass steaming around orchids in defiant bloom. I drew not his face but mine. Eyes steadier, lines softer with emerging strength. Christmas Eve dawned brittle, streets slick with ice under strings of lights that twinkled like false stars. The hostel hosted a makeshift feast. Turkey carved lopsided, cranberry sauce from a can, and I joined, forcing smiles over spiked eggnog. Stories circled the table. A Texan missing his rodeos, a Brit pining for London fog. When Lena asked about family, I shared the Haven Point letter, the tentative thaw. Progress, she toasted, and for the first time it felt true. No full pardon, but a door cracked, light seeping through. Midnight mass beckoned from a nearby church, candles flickering in stained glass glow. I went alone, Slipping into a pew back row, the choir's hymn stirring something primal. Not faith, exactly, but a yearning for grace. Kneeling in the hush, I prayed wordless. For Rowan, wherever southbound roads had led. For myself to stand whole in the fracture. Outside, snow fell fat and silent, blanketing the world in hush. Walking back, flakes catching in my lashes, phone buzzed, unknown number. Heart lurching, I answered. Eli, Rowan's voice, ragged as barbed wire. Static crackled, distance stretching the line. God, I miss you. Words tumbled then, apologies layered thick, explanations jagged. Jet had ambushed him that night, drunk and desperate, dredging up old wounds. Accusations of cowardice, of fleeing commitment like his brother had fled life. I snapped, said things I can't unsay. Needed air. Time to remember why I walked away the first time. He'd driven south, to a cousin's ranch outside Waco. Days lost to mending fences literal and not. But every mile you pulled me back. This us, it's not running. It's home. Tears froze on my cheeks. The city a blur of light and shadow. You hurt me? I admitted, voice small against the wind. Deep. Silence stretched. Then his sigh, heavy with regret. I know. Deserve it. But I'm coming back, Eli. If you'll have me. The plea hung, vulnerable as exposed wire. I closed my eyes, snow melting cold on skin. We talk. Really talk. No more ghosts. Agreement swift, laced with relief. Tomorrow. Greyhound lot noon. Hanging up, the night transformed. Lights warmer, steps lighter. Back in the bunk, I lay awake, pulse sinking with the drip outside, anticipation coiling tight. Dawn brought nerves, pacing the room, folding and unfolding a note of my own. Boundaries, truths, the shape of forgiveness. The station teemed with holiday stragglers, exhaust mingling with pine from wreaths. Then there he was, duffel slung over shoulder, face gaunt under beanie, eyes scanning desperate until they locked on mine. The hug was collision, arms crushing, breaths mingling ragged. I'm sorry, he choked into my hair. Won't happen again. I held him fierce, inhaling the road dust and resolve. Prove it. Over greasy diner fare, we unpacked. His triggers, my fears, the pact to face storms side by side. Laughter crept in, tentative, then full stories of ranch mishaps, my library epiphanies. By dusk, back in room 7, the bunk welcomed us whole, touches reverent, rebuilding what had cracked. But reconciliation's glow masked deeper currents. As January thawed the ice, Rowan's calls south grew coated, his smiles edged with strain. I dismissed it as residual static focused on our mending. Yet, when a package arrived, unmarked, containing a silver chain like the one he'd worn, snapped in two, unease stirred. Jet's doing? Or warning from within? The chain lay heavy in my palm, a fracture mirrored. Love, we'd learned, demanded vigilance, not blind faith. And as spring hinted green at the edges, I braced for the tempest that would test us ultimate. January's thaw came slow, Seattle shaking off its icy shroud like a dog after a bath. Mud puddles mirroring skies still prone to tears. Room 7 pulsed with renewed life, our rhythm rekindled but cautious, like dancers learning steps anew. Mornings blurred into shared rituals. Rowan's eggs scrambled with hostile spice chorizo, my coffee laced with his stolen sips. Lazy stretches where limbs tangled unhurried, kisses lingering like preludes. We're good, he'd murmur, forehead to mine, and I'd nod, believing it fierce because I needed to. The chain from the package, tucked in a drawer, unspoken talisman, its break a reminder to tread light. We plotted futures over maps spread on the floor, pins marking dreams. Austin for his roots, Portland for my whispers of art school applications. Together became mantra, etched in late-night vows as city lights flickered through rain-lashed panes. Yet undercurrents swirled. Rowan's shifts at a warehouse gig stretched longer, returns marked by quiet exhaustion, phones silenced face down. Over time, he'd explain, collapsing into the bunk with a kiss that tasted of fatigue. I trusted or tried, but the old scar from Jet itched, a phantom twinge. Mid-month, impulse pulled us to the Olympics, a weekend ferry to Port Angeles, rented cabin nestled in rainforest hush. The drive wound through fjords, evergreens bowing heavy with moss. Rowan's hand warm on my thigh as he navigated curves. "Remember our first hike?" he asked, grin flashing white. I laughed, squeezing back. How could I forget? You nearly face-planted in the mud. The cabin was rustic charm. Stone fireplace, loft bed creaking under our weight, and we lost days to it. Chopping wood that splintered satisfying under axe. Trails slick with leaf fall where we'd pause to press against trunks, breaths clouding urgent. Nights by the fire, bourbon warming veins, he opened veins too. Tales of his mother's passing, the void that Jet had filled with fire then ash. "You make me want steady," he said, fingers interlacing mine. Vulnerability bound us tighter, the forest a witness to promises whispered in flamelight. Back in the city, normalcy fractured subtle. A text glimpsed accidental. "Need to see you. Urgent." From a number saved as cuz. Harmless, I reasoned. But when Rowan pocketed the phone quick, unease bloomed. Confrontation simmered unspoken until a Friday eve. Rain sheeting the window as thunder grumbled distant. He was late, hours this time, and when the door swung open, his flannel clung damp, eyes evading. "Where?" I asked, voice even, heart not. He hesitated, dripping on the threshold. "Met a buddy. Old contact from Texas. Job lead." The lie landed soft but stung deep. I knew that look, shuddered, defensive, from the Jet days. Which buddy? Push too hard, and he'd bolt. Too soft, and truth drowned. He sighed, sloughing jacket, defeat in the slump of shoulders. Jet. The name dropped like lead. Silence stretched taut, broken only by the storm's growl. He cornered me at work, showed up unannounced, talking investments, some ranch deal my uncle's in. Swore it's business, Eli. Nothing more. Business. With the man who'd fractured us once? Rage flickered, hot then cold. "And you didn't tell me because?" Guilt carved his face, hands raking hair. "Didn't want to drag you back there. But yeah, stupid. Opaque when I should be glass." The admission cracked my armor, hurt yielding to the raw plea in his eyes. We argued regardless, voices rising till the walls seemed to lean in. Accusations flying. My cling from main scars, his evasion rooted in fear of loss. "I can't lose you," he burst, voice breaking. "Not to my fuck-ups." I crossed to him, hands on chest, feeling the hammer of his heart. "Then don't hide. We're in the shit together. Remember?" Truce sealed in the bunk, bodies seeking solace in familiarity. Slow, aching, a reclamation etched in sighs. Sleep came tangled, but dawn brought clarity. Therapy, maybe, or couples books pilfered from the library. We vowed transparency, phones open, shadows named aloud. Progress felt tangible, a bridge strengthening plank by plank. February bloomed false spring. Crocuses pushing defiant through cracks, air crisp with promise. Emboldened, I enrolled in community art classes, charcoal surrendering to oils on canvas. Portraits of Rowan, eyes alight with unspoken storms, hung in our room like talismans. He cheered loudest at critiques, pride swelling his chest. "That's my guy," he'd boast to classmates, arms slung casual, and belonging washed over me, warm as sunbreak. But Jet's web tightened insidious. Calls escalated. "Family matters," Rowan claimed, but tension etched his frame, sleep fractured by midnight paces. One night, I woke to murmurs, "Can't, man. Told you over." Click. He turned, sensing my stare. Him again. Weariness in the nod. Pushing the deal. Says it'll save the ranch, pull dad from debt. But it strings, Eli, always strings. Empathy warred with wariness. Family was his Achilles, the vein Jet knew to sever. The breaking point crested mid-month, Valentine's shadow looming. Rowan vanished post-shift, no text, no call, hours stretching to panic. I paced the hostel, dialing futile till battery died. Visions of Rex or worse clawing mind. Dawn grayed the sky when he stumbled in, face ashen, knuckles bruised raw. Jesus, Ro. I pulled him down, ice from the communal freezer pressed to swelling. The story spilled fractured. Jet at a bar, liquored and lethal, words escalating to shoves. He grabbed me, said you'd never measure up, that I was wasting on a Maine boy, swung wild. I ducked, countered. Bouncers tossed us both. Rage for him surged, mingled with terror. This toxicity bleeding back? End it? I pleaded, dabbing blood from his lip. The deal, the contact, cut clean. Tears tracked his cheeks, mixing salt with rain from his hair. Trying. But Dad's begging. The ranch is all he has left. Dilemma hung heavy, our haven tainted. That night, we held vigil, bodies spoon tight, my whispers anchoring his tremors. We'll find another way, I vowed, though paths blurred uncertain. Spring equinox brought pivot. A letter from home. Mom's hand again, warmer. Proud of your art. Send a painting? Encouragement. A bomb. Inspired, I pitched Rowan on a road trip east, reclaim roots, scout solutions. Your dad. Show him you're steady, not the runaway. Hesitation yielded to hope. Plans hatched over diner maps. Waco detour, then Maine, stitching wounds with miles. Departure dawned clear, Subaru loaded with coolers and canvases. Highway unspooled hypnotic, Springsteen's anthems fueling miles. Texas welcomed with heat haze, the ranch a sprawl of barbed wire and dust devils. Rowan's dad, weathered as leather, eyes sharp under brim, met us wary, grip firm on my hand. Heard about you. No warmth but no venom. Dinners round scarred oak. Talk of droughts, debts, dreams deferred. Jet's name surfaced oblique, that boy's trouble. And in the nod, alliance formed subtle. Maine followed, ferry slicing bay to Haven Point's embrace. Mom's pie waited, Dad's questions gentler. Settling west? Affirmatives flowed. Rowan at my side, hand under table a secret strength. Walks on pebble shores, waves murmuring absolution. This is family, he whispered one dusk, arm around me as gulls wheeled. Pride swelled, hours intertwined. Return to Seattle sealed growth, but Jet's final lash waited. A voicemail, venomous. Chose wrong, hail. You'll crawl back. Deletion swift, but poison lingered. As April showered green, we faced it head-on. A letter to his dad, truths laid bare, alternative gigs scouted online. Closure crept, hard won. Yet, in the bunk that night, Rowan's touch held tremor. What if it's not enough? Fear mine too. Love, we learned, was labor daily deliberate. And as summer hinted, we braced for the bloom or blight ahead, hands clasped against the unknown. Summer unfurled lazy over Seattle, sun slanting gold through leaves that greened defiant after winter's siege. Room 7 transformed, windows cracked to jasmine breeze, sheets aired on fire escapes, our lives a tapestry woven tighter with each passing dawn. The ranch letter had worked quiet magic. Rowan's dad wired seed money for a co-op farm venture. Jet's shadow excised like a tumor. Clean break, Rowan said, framing the check like art. His smile unclouded for weeks. We celebrated with rooftop barbecues, hostel mates toasting our resilience over charred burgers and stolen beers, laughter echoing off brick canyons. Art classes bloomed into exhibitions. My oils hung in a gallery crawl on First Avenue, strangers murmuring approval at canvases that captured Rowan's quiet storms, the arch of his back in morning light. He stood beside me opening night, flannel crisp, hand at my low back possessive yet proud. Knew you had it in you, he whispered amid clinking glasses. Kiss stolen in alcove shadows. Pride swelled mutual. His warehouse gig evolved to supervisory, steady pay funding dreams deferred. A shared apartment hunt, pins on maps shifting from whimsy to intent. Yet, idols harbor underbellies. Jet's silence proved prelude, not peace. Late June, a package thudded at the hostel desk. No return address, content spilling accusatory. Photos, grainy prints of Rowan and Jet, entangled in what looked like a motel dimness, timestamps from our early days. Accompanying note, typed sterile, truth hurts. He's poison. Heart plummeted, old wounds ripping fresh. Rowan denied vehement. Staged, Eli. Before us, twisted to wound. But doubt's serpent coiled, hissing queries. How many more lies? Was our foundation sand? Confrontation erupted monsoon sudden. Voices clashing in the room's close air. Why keep contact at all? I hurled, photos fanned like evidence. His face crumpled, hands outstretched. For the ranch, Dad's lifeline. But I cut it, swore. Believe me. Plea raw but trust once shattered, men's crooked. I stormed out, streets blurring under street lamp haze, ending at the waterfront where ferries hummed indifferent. Hours passed, phone silent, until his text, "Park, now, please." He waited on our driftwood log, profile etched against moon-silvered waves. No defenses, just open palms. You're right to doubt. I've earned it. Confession cascaded then. Full history with Jet. The passion that curdled to control, the escape to Seattle a bid for breath. You saved me, Eli. From that cycle, from myself. Tears gleamed on his lashes, voice fracturing. If you walk, I'll understand. But know this, every beat since you is yours. The tide turned in that vulnerability, my own tears salting the night. I need truth absolute, I said, hand finding his. No corners, no kinships with ghosts. Vow sworn under stars, photos burned in a beach fire pit, ashes scattering on wind. Catharsis scorched, but cleansed. Our bond tempered in fire's forge. July's heat wave baked the city, pushing us to escapes. Drives to Leavenworth's faux Bavarian charm, where we hiked alpine trails, sweat-slick hands clasped, peaks piercing blue. Laughter returned unfettered. Inside jokes over pretzels and polka. Nights intent under meteor showers. Bodies mapping constellations on skin. Forever starts here, he murmured, fireflies winking approval. Back home, apartment secured. A walk-up in Fremont with Troll Bridge views. Lease signed in duplicate, keys exchanged like rings. August crested with festivals. Bumbershoot's cacophony. Stages throbbing bass that synced our pulses. We danced in throngs, lost and found in sweat-glistened crowds, his arms anchor amid chaos. Yet, maturity marked us. Therapy sessions downtown, shared couch in a sunlit office, unpacking Maine's iron and Texas's thorns. You're worthy, the counselor affirmed, and in her mirror we saw it, men, not boys, fleeing shadows. Climax brewed subtle. Jet's vendetta cresting in a call to Rowan's dad. Lies spun of unstable partners. Deals sabotaged. Fallout hit hard. Elder Hale's voice cracking over speaker. Sort this, son. For the land. Rowan paced our new living room. Boxes half unpacked. Walls bare but hopeful. Rage coiling tight. He won't stop. Despair edged his tone. But I stepped in. Hand steadying. Then we fight smart. Together. Strategy unfolded. Legal consult via Hostel's network. Cease and desist drafted crisp. Confrontation final. Rowan dialing Jet on speaker. Voice steel. Done. No more reaches. No remnants. Or it escalates. Silence. Then venom spat. You'll regret. Click. Echoes faded. But victory hummed. Not in defeat. But distance claimed. September whispered autumn's edge, leaves turning amber as we settled domestic. Grocery runs debating kale versus collards, movie nights on thrift store couch, his head in my lap as credits rolled. Love deepened, nuanced, less fire, more ember. Quiet coffees tracing newsprint, walks where hands swung loose, conversations delving souls. One equinox eve, atop Gas Works Parks Hill, City sprawled glittering below. Rowan dropped to knee. Not ring, but a compass pendant. Rose mended from his tattoo's echo. Navigate with me? Question laced with forever's weight. Tears pricked, joy bursting. Always. Kiss sealed under harvest moon, windswept and sure. Yet humaneness tempers triumph. News from Haven Point. Dad's health falter, heart's quiet rebellion. Flight booked swift, Rowan at my side. His hand in mine through terminal bustle, arrival's hush. Hospital room smelled of antiseptic and salt. Dad frail in bed but eyes softening at our clasp. Brought your young man, I said, voice thick. Gruff nod. Then, look solid. Hold him close. Mom's embrace enveloped us both. Forgiveness full now. A circle closed gentle. Return brought perspective. Life's fragility underscoring our fortune. October's rains resumed, but we danced in them. Puddles splashing, laughter defiant. Gallery show second. My series on fractured anchors. Sales funding a trip south. Rowan's co-op seed sown. November circled back. Anniversary of meeting marked quiet. Bunk revisited at the hostel, now a relic. Then dinner at the rusty anchor, booth scarred with initials. Toasts to storms weathered, horizons vast. You changed everything, he said, candlelight gilding his gaze. Saved me right back, I replied, heart full. In the end, ours wasn't fairy dust or flawless arcs. It was grit and grace, betrayals bent to bridges, identities claimed unapologetic. We learned compassion's curve. For selves scarred, love's imperfect, worlds unyielding. Freedom bloomed not in escape, but embrace of each other, the mess, the mending. And in that authenticity, we found home, not in places pinned on maps, but in the steady beat between two hearts, synced against whatever gales blew next.